Chào mọi người, hôm nay Diệu rất là hào hứng khi được trò chuyện cùng với Patrick Rice. Bạn ấy chỉ mới 24 tuổi thôi, nhưng mà đã làm chủ sở hữu của một agency có tên là Strategic SEO Consultant. Tính ra thì bạn đã làm SEO được gần 7 năm rồi và giúp khách hàng đạt được doanh thu hàng triệu đô. Trong video này, chúng ta sẽ khám phá hành trình sự nghiệp của Patrick bắt đầu từ năm 13 tuổi và cách bạn ấy đã vượt qua những khó khăn, những bài học đắt giá mà bạn đã có được trong cái quá trình này. Đặc biệt Patrick cũng sẽ chia sẻ với chúng ta 5 bước để xây dựng một agency thành công. Mình đã chia phân đoạn ở dưới, bạn có thể skip đến phần nào bạn thích để nghe nhé. Thank you so much, Patrick, for agreeing to join us in this interview. But let's dive right into the first question. Can you share the step by step how you build up your career since 13 years old until now 24, right?
Yeah. If you go that far back, it goes back to a YouTube channel. I have a long career, so the first step was when I was 13, I created a Minecraft YouTube channel, which is just ridiculous. But that ended up in high school. I told a friend of mine's dad about the story. I was talking to him and I was explaining, like how I was doing this stuff. From that, he essentially, told me, hey, well, I own an SEO agency. How about you come into the office and we chat? Sounds like you're doing some digital marketing stuff. He really helped me. His name is Craig Lawson, by the way, of Click Ready Marketing. And so he really took me under his wing. He taught me everything he knew about SEO. And then within a year, I just went independent. And so I'm a little bit insane, always been an entrepreneur. So after a year of learning sort of their processes and how SEO works, I just went off on my own as a freelancer, essentially. Mostly like link building stuff. So I kind of like started a little link building agency for other agencies, including the Click Ready Marketing that I was working.
How old are you right now?
Yeah, and now I'm 24.
And then you're already an owner of an agency, but then you grow so fast.
Yeah, well, so I had a long period of time in between that, from like 18 to now.
Okay.
I had probably 2 or 3 years of sort of like finding my footing and like finding what I wanted to do, really keeping at like a freelancer sort of state. So I wasn't really doing many clients. I only had a few clients. And I think that's probably because I was so young. Like for a while, I was just sort of, not wanting to fully commit to like an agency or anything. And then it's been more or less in the last like 1 to 2 years where I fully committed and I, decided, hey, I want to build up a team. I want to build up something that's real and that provides value to the economy, to my employees, my clients. Like I wanted to create something actually real. And that's honestly only been in the last, like probably 18 months, maybe 20 months. Now, I work like 12 hours a day. I'm like really trying to build something. It's been a fun ride so far, but like that's sort of how the timeline is.
I heard that from Mass, how fast you growing. Even just a couple months ago, you were invited to speak at an e-commerce conference in China. And I was like, wow, Patrick, I really look up to you on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. And that's an aspect of like, you take the opportunities that are presented to you, because I had no clue that was an option. And then someone was like, hey, we need another speaker. Yeah, I think it's good, especially early in your career, to say yes to a lot of things. Eventually, and now it's getting to a point where I have to say no to some stuff.
Yeah.
But like, it's really good to say yes. I mean, just try out stuff, take risks.
But I believe there might be a lot of challenges along the way building up your agency, right? Can you name some of them?
Obviously, you have a few challenges inherent in any agency. So if you're trying to build an agency, the 2 biggest challenges are getting clients and then building a good team and servicing those clients. Like the initial trouble is actually getting clients. Back in the day, some of the first stuff I did was cold outbound. So I would do emails. I personally would email people. I'd spend like 10 minutes per email and then send out like 5 to 10 of those a day. And then eventually I started to build up a LinkedIn profile, which you can fairly quickly build a LinkedIn if you just post a lot and do all the LinkedIn stuff. If you research that, you can find. Then I started doing a little bit of outreach on LinkedIn as well.
How many people on your team right now? And how did you learn to manage them at the age of 24?
Yeah, so we just have 3 people. So it's really 3 people and me. I think that's sort of the general structure you want to go with for an agency. Is like you have a project manager who manages people underneath them. They handle client communication. They handle task management of all the employees underneath them. So the very tactical work of like optimizing an individual page, creating an individual blog post, that should have a specialist that's just going to do that. In SEO, you usually have a project manager. They're going to manage the account, they're going to manage the SEO strategy, and then you're going to have a on-page person. So they're going to be optimizing individual pages. And depending on what you're doing, you might just have multiple on-page people, because on-page is really important.
So what is your job?
My job?
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm very in the job, because I'm still taking a lot of care of every client and making sure that like the strategy is advanced. Like my project manager will give me a strategy, like he'll help out with it, but like I'm heavily involved in everything because I really want it to, deliver a great service. I think I'll eventually have to sort of, let go a little bit more. But right now, I think as we're building up the team, like that's the biggest next step is building out the team, building like those little pods of like project manager and people underneath them. You kind of replicate that as you scale clients. So building out the team, making sure that everyone's trained up really well is sort of my main job.
So what skills are required for beginners to step into the industry and do what you are doing right now?
First, make sure that you have the skill set. So you need to be very good at SEO, or at least have a baseline skill set in SEO. And that's where I recommend like spend a year at a job and pick up some skill sets there. Start your own website, do something where you learn the skill set, or do free work for a client and just be like, hey, I'm new to SEO, I don't know it very well, but I'm gonna give you a free service, and that can work. Once you have the skill set that you're going to market, then you need to get clients. So this is pretty difficult. You have to find out ways to do this. The most common are networking, Facebook outreach, LinkedIn outreach, and email outreach, as well as YouTube and inbound. Those are really the most common. You're gonna want to, like Craig Lawson, a great mentor of mine, said, if you really need clients, take your entire contact list, go from the least likely person to buy your services, and start with them and just call everyone in your phone book and say, hey, do you know anyone that needs services? I'm starting this agency, and so on. So you're gonna have to go very, aggressive in terms of sales and so on to get your first clients. The third step is making sure that you're servicing those clients and figuring out a system to actually, deliver results and not just be a freelancer. Once you have clients and you've generated all that, you're essentially going to be a freelancer. So maybe you have 3 to 5 clients, they're paying you whatever it is, but you're doing all the work. So like the next step is getting you out of that 9 to 5 or, whatever it is, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever it is, getting yourself out of the job you created. And that's going to be about initially hiring somebody that does a specific skill set. In SEO, the next step would be typically hiring an on-page person. So they're going to help you optimize pages. They're going to help you create blog posts, mostly the content kind of stuff. And that's going to be sort of your first hires. You're going to start at the project manager role. So the next step is you want to consider your business at a higher level. You have to think about positioning, branding. For example, I do e-commerce SEO. And so that simplifies my service offering and it simplifies my employee structure. I don't think you have to do e-com SEO. You don't have to do SaaS SEO. And I think there's a benefit to being a generalist to some degree. I think niching down isn't always required, but it can be a very good route to go. You kind of just have to figure out your skill set. What do you like doing? There's a lot of more philosophy, I would call it, like self-exploration, because you don't want to choose the wrong industry. You can't, if you're bad at e-com SEO, you shouldn't choose it. And if you're good at SaaS or dentists, then you can choose that. Decide on your positioning, what makes you special. And all of this is going to help within your outreach and within building clients, building a team, really figuring out what you're good at as an operator and as a leader. And that's going to really help you to position your agency. From there, you're going to build out the team. And the first step is kind of, build out SOPs. What I did is just record looms for every step of the process that I normally do. I just kind of extracted it from my brain, recorded looms, and then you kind of have a little system and you can hire for it.
Thank you. Now you can have your coffee.
Thank you. It's good coffee, by the way.
Yeah.
If you do want to build an agency, the first initial skill set you really need is to be a salesperson. And if you're totally not that and you hate sales and you never want to be one, then what I would probably recommend is partnering with a salesperson, because sales is the most important part of an agency. There's probably been a couple of times specifically where I've lost a client paying me $5,000 to $7,000 a month. And so like at my stage, that's quite a lot of money. And so you lose 7,000 of K MRR, you're gonna have to fix that, right? So you're gonna have to start talking to people, start networking, and that's usually how an agency works.
Yeah,
so.
what's the biggest failure
That's
have
a
you
good
made
question. That's a good question.
in your career
So until
the age of 24?
So I just mentioned losing clients, and there's really been one major client that I lost early in my career. I think I was 19, 20, something like that. And they did a huge migration. And so in SEO, migrations are where you change from one website to another website. So you totally restructure your website, and they're very complicated. And so now I've done many migrations that are successful, and I understand the deeper technical side of a migration. But at that time, I did not. And so that was by far the biggest failure, because I was traveling at the time. I was in India, which I totally regret, because of course they were paying me $5,000 a month, and they were by far my largest client at that time.
Yeah.
They hired an external team to do a migration, and the migration went through and they lost like 30% of traffic.
Okay.
Horrible. They fired me, right? And which is fine.
So what was the lesson learned?
Really, the lesson learned was learn how to do migrations. But no, like, don't abdicate responsibility is the main thing. I didn't really know how to do it then. Like, you have to be able to work. You have to always be aware of what could go wrong. Because this was an external company. Like, I wasn't doing the migration, but they told me about it, right? And I just wasn't thinking. Now I have much more visibility and responsibility of like, hey, this is my client. I have responsibility over them. And if anybody else is coming in or anything like that, I have to make sure that it goes well.
Okay.
So it's mostly about responsibility, because I was also like 19. I think I was 19 at the time.
Yeah. You already have all the money you need to live a comfortable life. What else could you want to do?
I'm not that driven by money. And it's might be surprising, because of course I am to a degree, and you sort of have to be an entrepreneur. But my biggest driving force, I think very long term, my biggest driving force is I'm going to build up this agency. I'm going to provide good work to good companies, and I'm going to eventually sell the agency and generate capital. Once I have a lot of capital, I'm going to reinvest that into innovative startups, doing something that I think is more or less good for the world. Good.
More or less good for the world?
Yeah, so more or less. So I want to do
more
good.
Or less. Okay, you want to do the good. I said more or less.
That's my
so
goal.
is it more or less?
Yeah,
good for the world.
Yeah. It sounds so cheesy saying this stuff, so I have to say like more or less.
But I think that's the right direction at 24 years old. As us.